We are back with this Striker Tejas. Well, I guess we could have had some drum rolls, right? It would be better than me faking this. But anyways, we're back with this Striker Tejas, your favorite Texas USL podcast. Well, we can't say it's the only one. Edson has one also, right? So, and maybe there's a couple from San Antonio. All right, it's your favorite USL podcast, no matter what. And we're here once again. Joe has ditched us, so he's not here. No, there's something more important than us, which I don't get it. Not that I was out for a few weeks also, so I gotta
my heart just broke.
I say this, but yeah, heartbroken. But anyways, we got at least 75% of our crew on board today. You know, one of us has some allergies, as it looks like. You know, Jonathan might need some Zyrtec down there. How are you? How are you in San Antonio?
Doing all right. I'm just glad that I'm pretty sure I was able to mute that before. You know, hopefully might have looked a little gross on the recording, but you didn't hear anything. You didn't have your.
You only know what happened if you're watching on the video. If you're only doing audio, you go to the Striker. That's the Striker site. Find us there. You're gonna see the video, and we're gonna be good.
Or even better idea, don't.
well, come on, Jonathan. We're supposed to drive traffic towards the video for views.
Yeah. On the weeks when I don't sneeze on video.
It's just a nice sneeze. Nothing. Everybody sneezes. Could be something worse. Come on, guys. It's good. Edson, how are things down there at the border?
Well, I am definitely on cloud 9 since last Sunday. My favorite NASCAR driver actually signed my my flag over there. So if on my birthday, nonetheless, too. So it was just epic proportions. How I enjoyed my day, and obviously coming off of the pretty much the motivation that of RGV getting a convincing win in Charleston, you know, despite some issues that they were having, which we'll talk about in a minute.
All right, cool. And what is the hats today?
Daniel Suarez, 99 NASCAR playoffs. The official one.
All right, sounds good. So let's start with the earlier game, right? The first game of the weekend on Saturday. A long flight for RGV from the border to Charleston. Convincing 3-0 win. Was it a convincing 3-0 win, like you said?
Definitely. It was a very convincing win because of all these issues that happened prior to their match on Friday. I had gotten word from a source that the team did not arrive until 8 o'clock local time that day of the match. I was told that there were multiple delays and cancellations of their flights, as well as, you know, that caused them a delay to get to Charleston. Yesterday in media availability, Wilmer Cabrera did confirm that and also mentioned that the hotel that we're staying at did not have the resources to make breakfast for all 26 people that made the trip for the Toro. So they only had 8. And so a lot of the players took advantage to kind of catch up on their sleep. I talked to Christian Pinzon. I talked to Juan Pablo Torres. Both asked them about the situation. They mentioned along the lines of, it's not a very favorable experience for the players, for anybody within their staff. But like Pinzon said, we're already at the stadium. We already know what we got to do. No, we can't use this as an excuse. And it's time to perform regardless of where we are fully rested or not. This is our job. And RGVFC did just that. Although in the first half it did feel like the fatigue was starting to kick in for the team. Wilmer Cabrera mentioned he made some adjustments at halftime for the second half. And while Charleston did have more possession of the ball overall, the defense was able to limit the chances. How many weeks have I said that about the defense? And RGV was very lethal in the counterattack. The first 2 goals were based off of counterattacks, recovering the ball from Charleston. And in 3-4 touches, they were already in the opposing team's 18. Now, what I also liked was they also had not only counterattack underneath their belts, but when they needed to, like in the 3rd goal, and they wanted to open up Charleston and take advantage of their desperation, they employed a more possession-based gameplay, passing the ball back, trying to get Charleston to take the bait and heighten up their lines and open up the spaces. Fell for it, foot line, and sinker. And Christian Pinzon, in the original shot, was unable to get it past the keeper, but in the rebound, Juan Pablo Torres did get the 3rd goal. He mentioned that it was a very special goal for him, as someone that he knew that was close to him had recently passed away. So he felt that it was a very, very sentimental goal for him as well. But it's a good result. The Toros continue to be in 7th place in the Western Conference. And now they've got a couple of very difficult matches ahead against top Eastern Conference teams.
We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But anyways, we could it's interesting that you set out the difficulties that they had. It's easy for us to just come here and say which can happen either way, right? Can go both ways. Sometimes those difficulties brings a team together, right? Those challenges really bond and make the group strong. And we always say that USL teams are very similar alike in terms of quality. Most of them, of course, you have the outliers every year, but most of them are very similar. And those kind of things that brings teams together, sometimes is that little extra push that you need, and you're able to do that. On the other hand, sometimes it can go totally the other way, opposite. You start having those problems, and you can't get the group together. So, congratulations to Wilmer to be able to get the group together and overcome that. We're critical of Wilmer many times here in this podcast, so I think we should give him credit when he deserves, and I think this is a moment that we should. Congratulations to him to be able to overcome all of that and have a great game. Next day, San Antonio hosts Sacramento. We talked a lot last week how this game could be very difficult with the many wins that Sacramento was having since the Open Cup final, which they could have taken. We also talked about that. They were close to going to PKs against an MLS team. Nice win. Does the 1-0 reflect a difficult game, or how did the game go?
Yeah, so it was, first of all, I think it's worth saying this was SAFC's 3rd match in the span of a week, all at home, but, 3 matches against teams in playoff positions. So I'm sure by the end of this, especially with some of SAFC's injuries, it was maybe a little tired. And it was another 1-0 win. You get the result. It wasn't exactly that, it was a more convincing performance, I think, than the previous 2 matches, but it wasn't complete yet. But as long as you're getting results, that's kind of all that matters. And I was looking at the standings earlier today. SAFC is undefeated in its last 5 matches, and I think RGV might have 1 loss in its last 5. I want to say Monterey Bay might have 2. And besides that, everyone else has at least 3. So for SAFC to, maybe not look so convincing, but to be getting these results, that's kind of what you want at the end of the season, when playoffs are coming around and you have to be consistently good. You can't slip up in any game. That's what you want. You want to be grinding out these results. But at the same time, with some of these games, with SAFC having a good share of the play and everything, you would want them, especially if you're an SAFC fan, you want them to be, really putting their foot on the gas and making that advantage count. You don't want them to just be winning 1-0, because you never know what can happen at the other end of the field. You take a weird deflection, you get kind of a shaky penalty call, and the other team is right back in it. So it's it's a theme that I've seen with a number of SAFC games throughout the season, even some recently, but Sacramento is not exactly the match where you can complain about that as much as some of the others, even just some of the the previous two matches.
Sacramento in the faith that they are, you celebrate on the locker room no matter what. Right? It's a win. It's a good win. I agree with you. This is the time of the season that you need wins. You don't need to necessarily play good. It's the win becomes more, the points becomes more important, because once you lose those points, you can't recover them anymore, right? There's no time for that. So the wins are good. So we already said that El Paso didn't play because of the Tampa Bay cancellation, hurricane. Jokes aside, very sad what's going on in Florida. Hope everybody's fine. I have texted with some people from the USL office. The headquarters is based in Tampa also. So I texted back and forth with some of them. Make sure that everybody's fine. Looks like everybody is fine out there at the headquarters. So our prayers and our positive thoughts goes to everybody there in Florida at this point, and the East Coast, where the hurricane is still going to hit in the coming days. So hopefully, we're able to minimize those losses. But going back to soccer here, where we're talking after those two Texas games, the two victories, the 6 points from those two games. This is how the stands look like at this point, right? San Antonio once again keeps sitting on first. Sorry to put you on the spot, Jonathan, but do you remember which round San Antonio came to be first? It's been a long time ago. I feel it was like on the first quarter of the tournament, right?
Yeah. So I feel like I was actually kind of thinking about this earlier today. I didn't get a chance to look or anything, but I feel like it was around the time that it beat Colorado Springs in June. And I mean, there might have been a little
1/2 or 3/5 into the 2/5 into the tournament. I would guess. So, but anyways,
yeah.
No matter when it was, it's been a long time that SAFC has been in first place in the Western Conference. Another several months also being first overall in the league. 70 points, 31 games. El Paso is sitting 6th with 43 points, 31 games. And then RGV 1 point behind, sitting in 7th, 42 points, 30 games. I think the best part of this is that Las Vegas, who's sitting in 8th, is 2 points behind RGV with 1 game more, 31 games. So RGV plays a game more than everybody else in that playoff zone of the Western Conference. But I'm gonna play around with our jokes with Mr. Wilmer Cabrera. We could even say that it's a 12-point week, because it's playing Louisville and Memphis, who both are battling to be first in the Eastern Conference, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
So
yeah, no, that's correct.
It's RGV might be changing the whole playoff structure of or at least going to influence that.
And also, I have been thinking, as weird as it might be for SAFC fans, you might kind of want to root for the Toros, because it makes SAFC's chances of getting first overall a lot easier.
That's it.
I mean, SAFC has it in its own hands. It just needs another 4 points. That's the magic number. But if you get the help from RGV taking points off of those two teams over the next 2 matches, great.
And I'm sure if RGV does not play well or does not get the results in the next 2 games, I can already see Wilmer a week from now, a week and a half from now, complaining about the interconference games. And I'm going to say it now, before the games happen. I agree with him, because I think that's the part of the interconference games that I don't like, is somebody on the Western Conference might have had the chance to play against the 2 worst teams on the East Conference, and now RGV in a playoff moment, battling for for the spot, has to play two of the best teams in the league as of now from the other conference that has nothing to do with them, right? So
Mhm.
I was always against that in the league, in the competition committee when I was part of that. I don't think it is. I like competitive balance. That's what I call, right? I think it should be the same way for everybody. So, but I know for the business overall, it's not good. It's better for you to play with those different teams and all of that. But I want to just point it out today that if RGV doesn't get points on the next two games and Wilmer complains and Joe makes fun of him, I'm going to defend Wilmer Cabrera. I just want to make that
Yeah,
clear.
dijo. So they did touch up on it on yesterday's media availability with Juan Pablo Torres. They asked him about playing against a really top team of the Eastern Conference, and he mentioned that they don't see it as anything negative, but rather is at the end of the day, you're gonna end up having to, if you make it that far into the playoffs, you're still gonna have to end up having to play against these top teams in the Eastern Conference if you make it to the final. So might as well kind of use it as sparring to see where you're at, in relation to those top teams in the USL Championship.
I like the mentality. I like that. If their comments today would be anything different than that, we would be criticizing them about that. So I think the position that they took at the press conference this week, and more than that, there's nothing that they can do to change that. So they just have to go in and try to win the game. But I want to make it clear here that I don't think it's a fair way to play a championship.
So now I'm curious as to what, if you're allowed to say, what were some of the reasonings to have these interconference
So
games?
there are several reasons, right? But the first one is, and I talked to the league people in the beginning of the season. I was not part already of making the division alignment this year, right? I was last year, but not this year. And uh, there's a couple of things, right? First of all, is the fact that playing different teams usually, in theory, helps sell tickets, right? It creates more interest. Once you don't want to play 5 times the same team, it's better for you to play 4 different teams, even if you create that unbalanced competition, right? That's one thing. Well, it's basically the same, because the other one is, if you don't do that, you either play less games or you play many times same people, right? And then we go back to what we had at the COVID year, our first year here as on the podcast, that we were complaining so much how much they were playing against each other 4 or 5 times last year. Remember, within the specific divisions, and oh man, why are we playing RGV San Antonio 5 times? It doesn't make sense, and whatever it is, right? So again, I am in the theory that the best way to do it is usually two games, home and away, for everybody, which was what we had in 2019. In 2019, we were able, the league was balanced enough to be able to do that home and away for everybody. It was very fair, clean, and you move forward. But the moment that you start having teams leaving the league or coming into the league, it becomes a little bit of a mess, and it is a decision. There's no perfect solution for it. There are people that prefer one and people that prefer the other. I still prefer playing 2 or 3 times the same people that are battling for the same playoff spot that you have, than have to play, random teams from the other conference, and being very unbalanced. Again, if somebody has played two of the lower, position in the Eastern Conference, and compared to playing against Louisville and Memphis at this point, oh my God, that's crazy. Now that's another part of the discussion. Sorry, Jonathan, I'll let you say something. Well, actually, go first, Jonathan. Go first.
I was just gonna say, I just thought how, okay, we're talking about how RGV is about to play, the two top teams in the East. you know what else? We talked about how they were playing one of the bottom teams in the East. So, I mean, it maybe balances out to an extent. And I was actually, I don't know if you want to put a pin in this and then finish what you were thinking and then talk about or sort of answer this. But I was thinking, we talked in the past how teams get to kind of choose, their schedules and when they play and all that. I was wondering if you could kind of tell us if teams get any input in terms of what teams they can play outside of,
No,
just the
no.
required. The
That
league
no,
decides
that
that
is
part.
this system, and again, my understanding is that is an artificial intelligence that does that. It's a software that does that, and I hope that there's no influence on how they make that. Right? It is my understanding that there's not, and I have no reason to believe it is different than that. So until somebody comes to tell me and say, "Hey, I know for a fact that the league directs opponents in the tournament," I don't believe that happens. Okay, so make it very clear here. But there are another part, and that's what I was going to get into it in a few moments. Is that there's another part that you can do is change the position of some games. It is a chess game because every time that you change a position, it has to work for the league, for the visiting team, and for the home team, and the stadium has to be available. It is a difficult thing. And I feel bad. I was about to say that I feel bad for two things that are going on now with Texas teams. One is what we just talked about, RGV playing two games in the last few games against top teams on the Eastern Conference, which clear that I don't like, but very upset, very sad with El Paso that they play all the games before everybody else. So their last game is a midweek game now because of the transfer Tampa game. Otherwise, their last game would be on 1 week before everybody else. And everybody goes to the game knowing what they need to do to be ahead of El Paso. Mm-hmm. And most likely, I would guess, it's because of the baseball season. I'm guessing it is the baseball season, right? But no matter what, I think that's also something that I really like how MLS does. Decision day, everybody play at the same time. The Brazilian Championship is the same way. Last day of the tournament, everybody plays at the same day at the same time. We also have a problem with USL because of TV production. But if you go back to the previous years, we had that where everybody on the Eastern Conference would play at the same time. And then the Western Conference would play everybody at the same time, which is fair. Again, it's the competition balance. But anyways, I don't know if you guys want to comment on anything on that.
I know that Liga MX used to have that as well. Woo, back in the days, I think like in the early 2000s was the last time they did something like that, and it really brought in a lot of emotion because it was like you were watching a broadcast, and then they would show, oh, like this team just scored, and this is how it affects the final standings going into the playoffs and all of that.
That's what you want, man. That's what you want. I remember once in Brazil. All my friends, not all my friends, but we had a bunch of guys in my house, maybe 15 or 20 guys in my living room. And I put 4 or 5 TVs in my living room. Each TV had a game going on. And we all watching all of those games together. Well, today we have that on Sports Bar, right? But we're not talking about it. The 90s or the 2000s, we didn't have that. I had cables coming in from every room, every bedroom. I had a cable, the cable box from each room of my house was everything on the living room. We're living that emotion. I love that. I think it's good. I know it creates some problems, but I love that. So I think that's soccer is about emotions. If you take that away, or if you can add that, I think it makes it better.
Yeah, and I know that was kind of like an issue that was being mentioned last season with this whole situation between New Mexico United trying to find for the ticket, as well as RGV fighting for that last ticket in the Western Conference. I believe the I want to say it was the New Mexico United match that was delayed, so it wasn't at the same time as the Toros, and so it leads to this whole thing of, had it not been for, let's say, the fact that the Toros, with the win, they automatically made it, it would have been a lot more um, difficult, because, well, it's very easy now in social media that, oh, final whistle at HEB Park, the Toros lost. So now New Mexico United knows that, with an equal, that
Well,
with a
but
draw.
that's still better than having the RGV game finish 3 hours before the other game, and now you have the chance to study and to prepare to go into the game knowing that result, right? You still only have a few
True,
minutes
true.
to finalize that. Again, and we had issues in Brazil. The teams would delay in purpose, and then they started being fined. And now today, all of the games starts together. They actually have a system where all the referees get an information at the second half to start at the same time. So they delay a little bit the other games to make sure that everybody's starting at least at the same moment. But anyways, so since we're talking about that, RGV has 4 games, like we talked, as Louisville at home. No, Louisville at home, Memphis away, Phoenix away, and Monterrey at home.
Well, Phoenix is at home as well.
Oh, Phoenix is at home. So this is what I did wrong. I knew I had some. So 3 out of the 4 are playing at home. Not that RGV Park, no, that HEB Park has been too much of an advantage for RGV this year, but it is good to finalize with less travel, the team better, and if you make the playoff, the team is a little bit more rested than it would if you're traveling everywhere, right? So again, Louisville home, Memphis away, then Phoenix and Monterrey at home. El Paso has Colorado away, Orange County, Colorado and Orange County are home, and then Tampa away. That's El Paso's live in the next week and a half. And then San Antonio FC away with Pittsburgh, away with Birmingham. I always have a hard time saying that word. And then finish the season at home against Orange County, a revival of the Western Conference from last year, but in a totally different scenario, where Orange County is sitting on one of the last spots of, it's going to be sitting on one of the last spots of the conference, and San Antonio FC, with a trophy to be lifted at the end of their game.
Yeah, we can. Well, first of all, I have actually heard that apparently the USL will not be giving out a regular season trophy this year. I don't know if I'm breaking that, but those are the whispers I've heard. So hopefully,
I'll question the league today, and we'll have that for everybody next week.
But so hopefully SAFC is at least able to enjoy Copa Tejas, and maybe it motivates them to get the silverware at the end of the playoffs. Who knows? But also,
and how do you feel about those 3 games, Jonathan? Or how has Marcina expressed how his vision those 3 games? I would guess his vision as a preparation for the team to get to the playoff. There's not much more to do at this point.
Yeah, I mean, particularly for the 2 coming up. If SAFC plays its cards right, and if RGV and other teams playing Louisville and Memphis give SAFC some help, these will be SAFC's last 2 away matches. So all the difficulties of traveling, of playing in an unfamiliar environment, this is the last time SAFC has to deal with those. And like I said earlier, they just need 4 points to lock up home field advantage throughout the playoffs, as long as they keep winning at home. So if these aren't going to be the easiest games. Pittsburgh is just a tough team in general, not to mention playing away there. And Birmingham is also really difficult. Both of them, at least last I checked, were known for being solid defensively. And this SAFC team has not been the best at finishing its chances. So it's going to be an interesting sort of 2 sides of the coin there. How do those 2 factors go together?
How fun would it be to have the USL Cup being played in Texas, right? And the way it looks at this stand, most likely the only one that can host that USL Cup is is San Antonio FC, of course, unless one of the lower playoff spots of the Eastern Conference makes to the final. But even then, because there's such a difference on points on both ends, I'm about to say, and we can confirm here a little bit, yes, even if no, well, actually no. Is it the seed or it is the points that determine the host at the USL Cup final? We should check on that and bring this to everybody next week. Does that make sense? What I'm asking?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, do you have the standings open? Because I feel like I
Yeah, I
was
have the
looking at this
standings, but what I'm
recently.
saying here, if the sixth place of the Western Conference plays the seventh today, let's say using the points that we have today, and they are going to change. The sixth place El Paso has 43 points, but the seventh place Miami has 49. So my question is, what is going to determine the USL
That's a
Cup
good question.
host? Is it the seed or is the points of? I want to believe it's the seed, but I'll confirm that and we'll bring this to everybody next week, or even before that. We can tweet that this week. All right, Edson, how do you feel about those last four games? Louisville, Memphis, Phoenix, and Monterrey. 3 out of 4 home.
I think these two matches against the Eastern Conference teams, they're going to be very difficult. They're going to really put Wilmer Cabrera's tactics to the test. Louisville City's coming into this match kind of with their pride hurt after that heartbreaking last second loss to Memphis 901 at home. They lost. They also had one important player red carded as well. So in their quest to continue to try to salvage a way to get back, the regular season championship, per se, they're not going to rest on their laurels, or I don't believe that they're going to want to start playing the kids, to rest up their main players. They're going to go in with all of their cards. Now, the fact that the Toros have shown that they are very good defensively in these last couple of games, being able to stop, some of the more lethal teams when it comes to offense. I feel like that will probably give them more of an equal footing with Louisville City. Is the weather going to be a factor? It is predicted that is forecasted to be like in the lower 90s. So it's not going to be as hot as it usually is here in the Rio Grande Valley. But currently in Louisville, they've been like in the 70s. So I think that could play a factor. The motivation from RGV is at an all-time high. So I honestly think that could be the thing. Now, Memphis is going to be very difficult. I think that's going to be the game that the Toros will more than likely get a negative result, probably a loss. But Phoenix Rising, we know that they have been struggling all of this season. Yes, the Toros did lose against Phoenix at home, but since then, the Toros have improved tremendously. So now they're going to be playing at HEB Park. So it is going to be more feasible to get a victory. Monterey Bay, while they have made huge improvements since the beginning of the season, they did just recently lose by a scandalous result against Las Vegas Lights. So it's going to be a question of which version of Monterey Bay are the Toros going to get in that season, in that regular season ender.
That point where Monterrey is not even, battling to be in the playoffs, depending on how the results go before that, right? But I was looking also, thinking now, right? If you could choose to not play Louisville and Memphis and say, hey, I'll put a point or 2 points on my bucket, or how many points would you be happy? You think Wilmer would be happy to come out of this next 2 games to to be successful and make the playoffs. I kind of looking at the table. I see Las Vegas has three very difficult matches for them.
Yes.
Their last three games. They're playing. I was looking here. They're
I
playing.
believe they're playing Tampa as well.
No,
Miami.
They're playing New Mexico at home. New Mexico needs to win to guarantee and to be secure, which is going to be, no matter what, a difficult game. Then Miami, who's the last spot on the playoff position on the Eastern Conference. And then they play a derby. If you think that the Las Vegas Lights are the LAFC second team, they play an LA derby at the last game of the season, where I'm sure the Galaxy 2 players are going to come trying to destroy Las Vegas at the last game. So Las Vegas is in a tough situation. So going back to my initial question, and I'm going to answer what I think, and then I'll let you answer. If you come out of this with 2 points or more, it is a great 6-point run. I would even say if you get a point out of the 6, I wouldn't be sad about it.
Yeah, definitely. I think though, when I made my prediction in my own podcast, I mentioned that for me, I would be really content with a point against Louisville, and I would calculate it would be a calculated loss against Memphis 901.
I agree with you. So not much to lose, and that's also good. Not much to lose on the next 2 games. Momentum on your side. Cabrera, Wilmer saying the right things, which is not common. So it seems that we're on the right track to have RGV on a playoff position, and maybe even playing in San Antonio again, just like last year. All right, guys, I think we're long into the podcast. There's so much more to talk about. We have some answers for our listeners that we got today, so we got to figure those things out and bring back to everybody. As always, we can only do this because of you. So support us, support the Striker. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to the Striker, and always support local soccer. See you guys.